Alrighty, hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Ascended Life podcast. I am Dar-El.
And I am Kesley. Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome. We got a lot to unpack.
Wow, you have rebirth host today.
You do have rebirth host completely. But before we dive into that, we want to give a shout out to today's sponsor of the episode. It's August Alchemy. An amazing process. After I did the ayahuasca, I went there for was called like a divine healing session. It was amazing. I mean, I literally felt my DNA being upgraded. So if you're in Medellin, or if you want to check her out in her services online, check her out on Instagram. It's August Alchemy. And yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, she was telling me last night that she does virtual sessions. And so I'm going to be signing up for one of those to help with this whole integration process for sure.
It was amazing. So we are coming to you today from Medellin.
Here we are, yes, in Medellin, fresh off of our ayahuasca experience. So today we're recording on, Monday?
Today's Monday, yeah.
if time even exists after that experience, I'm not sure that it really does in the way that I thought that it did.
Right.
Did our experience on Saturday, so we are 2 days out from a very deep, profound, impactful, soulful, I don't even have the words. How would you describe the experience?
Wow. I mean, I saw everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that I'm able to sum it up. Like when you get to see everything.
Yeah.
I mean that literally. Like I literally saw everything. So
Wow.
It's like it was dope for me. But yeah, why don't you talk about you? I know who I am. I can say that now.
Yeah.
I found out 100% with no doubt who I am and what I'm here for. It's literally like that same thing that those folks that I talked about with those NDEs, people that had died and crossed over. It's like you see these things and you just know. So there's no doubt with that. You know, there is this piece of me that's kind of, and we can dive into that a little bit later, but there's this piece of me that's kind of like not wanting to accept and like, that was all fake and da-da-da, you know,
Yeah, you go through kind of these phases of, I guess people call it the integration process, right? Where it's like, was that real? Do I believe that? And now what do I do with it? Now that I have that information on who and what I am, like how do you go forward in your life, like having that knowing? And, you know, I think for me, it was really like refreshing at the same time because there's not like any huge shifts. It was kind of like some things that I was already working on that I got more information on how to go about it. But I completely agree with you. When we were starting out on the experience, I mean, the shaman kind of gave that as an anchoring question we could ask ourselves was, who am I?
Who am I? Yeah.
Who am I, along with the breath? Those were like the real tools that he gave us, was breathe and ask, who am I? And that was really the intention that I set. And even though I got so much more, I completely and wholeheartedly agree that question was answered.
Who you are.
In so many different ways.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, let me give a brief, so I'm going to give y'all a brief rundown of what happened. All right?
And set the stage, because I think that's important too, like where we did it and all that.
All right, so we've been living in Cartagena. We started off living in Medellin for the first month. Medellin is a dope city. It's cool, but we're just more tropical people. I mean, it's been kind of cold here. Cold relatively. It's like between 60 and 80. It's a beautiful city, as you can see from the set here, but we just like the tropics more. That's just more of our vibe. So anyway, so we go out, fly into Medellin, we check into our Airbnb.
Can I rewind just a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead.
So to kind of back up a couple of weeks ago, so both of us obviously on our spiritual journeys for several years now, right? Like we both know people who've done ayahuasca. I've had many opportunities. I was in fact signed up for a ceremony back in December. So about 8 months ago when I was all set to do it, the whole family got sick, so I wasn't able to complete it. Well, 2 weeks ago, we were watching a podcast and the people on the podcast were talking about their ayahuasca experience. And the podcast was about abundance. So it wasn't even really about plant medicine. That was one of the reasons we were watching it. Yeah. And you were like, we need to do this. Like this needs to be the number one priority in our life right now. Like we need to make this happen. We have lots of different, nonprofit and all these different things going on. But you were like, we need to make this a priority. And you were so right. You were so right. So, okay, please continue. I just thought that was important.
Shout out Erin Lyons. That's her name on YouTube. She's pretty big on YouTube. Shout out Erin Lyons because she used to be a Wall Street broker, I guess. And but she was always spiritual. And, spirit took her away from that and gave her abundance in different ways. So very powerful information on that podcast. But anyway, setting the stage. Timing. So what happened was we got to Medellin on what? Friday night. Yeah, Friday. Was it Friday afternoon?
Yeah,
Friday afternoon,
yeah,
Friday night.
Again, this time thing, like it really, doesn't hold the same weight.
I'm
that
right
it
there
once
with you.
did.
I can only tell because the sun and the time and all that. So anyway, we get in on Friday and we kind of kick it, we chill, it's whatever. So they come and they pick us up first thing. So they take you out to this farm, this area in the mountains. Like you're literally, so if anybody who's been to Medellin knows that this whole entire city is surrounded by like very steep, very high mountains. So they take us out to the mountains, up to this farm, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's just like we worked with a native or indigenous family who has been doing this. I guess they've been passing down this rite or ritual for thousands of years, is what we were told.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get there and we go up and we're there, and there was a girl there who translated for us a lot, who spoke English. She went to Penn State and she spoke English. It was like her 9th or 11th time or something like that.
Yeah, 9th time in a year.
Yeah, doing ayahuasca. So she's really searching, doing things with that. But anyway, so she was translating for us with the shaman. So we're sitting in this area behind this big house / farmhouse. But in the back, they got this huge like shed, and it's all open earth. There's just like tons of nature and garden and everything around. And they have like these pallets, these long wooden pallets with small, thin mattresses on top of it, right? And it's just that, and it's the earth, and it's right there, right? So they're telling us, because I guess it's normal for most people when they take this, they throw up and they have diarrhea.
They purge. Yeah, it's a process of purging. Ayahuasca is a purging plant medicine.
Yeah, so you're gonna throw up and or have diarrhea or both. And did you have diarrhea or no?
Just purge through the mouth.
So yeah, so they told you were gonna have one of the two, or if not both. So I look up and we go in this area and we're laying there, right? So I cannot make this up. Like everybody just starts their journey quick, and I'm just sitting there like, is this stuff going to kick in or what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Like one guy's walking around dancing. She's over here literally like having sex with God or the creator or whatever.
Well, and like to insert a little bit as well, like I had that thought too, right? When the journey first started, I was having these thoughts of like, because there's a period of time before it really kicks in, where I was like, okay, well, maybe this isn't that potent. And I was having the thought of like, do I need to like take control of the experience? But I remember people who've done it before, and I just heard my inner self, my higher self saying like, you know, just relax into this, like surrender to the experience, accept the experience, like let mom, I know a lot of people call it like Aya or Mama. It was like Mama Gaia. It was like Gaia. That was like the voice that showed up for me. Gaia was just like, just lean back and trust me. And yes, you said at one point very early on, it sounded like I was having sex with God, but there was actually a lot that went on in my mind before that.
Everybody else. Let me just give my experience.
Okay,
so from my perspective, everybody else was gone. You included. Everybody it hit them all at one time, and I'm just sitting there.
Because you were like, you're a much bigger person, much bigger human form than everyone else there.
Regardless of what happened, there was two guys that were around my height. There was two guys there. The other darker skinned guy and that other guy, they were pretty much the same height as me.
Okay.
Everybody else was gone, checked out. And they're coming up to me, the guides. We had these guides there, physical like humans. And they were like, hey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What's going on? You know, I look over and she's moaning. I'm
going through it, guys. Yeah.
You don't even remember this.
I don't remember that part, but there's a lot that I remember before. I remember this part.
Let me tell the story.
Okay,
I experienced it. Let me tell the story. So from my perspective, like she's gone. She has no memory of it. She's just under this cover, just rocking back and forth, and she's moaning. I'm talking like sex moans, right? Like literally like sex moans. And I hear this going on, and I'm just like, all right, whatever. And then as that's going down, this guy's walking by doing like these dances, and he's like bowing down on the ground. He's screaming like, yeah, and doing all this stuff, right? And I'm looking around, and then this girl named Angie, she's walking around. She's just throwing water on people. She's like throwing water on people, and then they had to like physically restrain her and like walk her back to her section. You know what I mean?
Because they didn't want us touching or interacting with other people, at least in the sacred space.
Yeah, because they didn't want you to kind of interrupt the process. So that's what for me was going on that I saw before my journey started. But now that I just gave the physical background on kind of what I saw, why don't you talk a little bit about how your journey started?
Yeah.
Because you went through yours first. So I think it'd be better if you just kind of explain to us what you went through, and then I can kind of jump in and
there's a lot. So I will do my best to hit some of the high points and what my higher self speaks to me in this moment as would be relevant for all of you. One of the things I would add that I thought was really interesting about the experience is our facilitators didn't speak English. And I found out during my experience that language really like it exists in this reality, but in the other realities and the overlapping realities that I went to, it didn't exist. Like in my mind, they were speaking to me in English, which I really don't know if they were speaking to me in any language or if they were just telepathically like communicating with me. But
the one lady, she only spoke Spanish.
She only spoke Spanish, but I swore she was speaking to me in English at one point, right? Anyway, they weren't, they didn't speak English, and I didn't know who was a facilitator. When we started, the woman who ended up being our guide and sort of our caretaker,
Marcella.
Yeah,
shout out Marcella.
I thought she literally told us in the car that she was just our driver. But
no, she was
but I didn't understand all the Spanish. But then she was like really a big part of my experience and showed up to me in the experiences as God. Like I literally very early on, like I wholly with all of my being, like knew that she was God. Yeah. At one point I knew that you were God. At one point I knew that I was God. That was a little bit later on. But yeah, when it first started, it felt like it was a very slow sort of like ramp up. And like, again, I was kind of in my head, like, okay, well, what's this going to be? But I was just easing into it, continuing to ask myself that question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And the first thing I remember really hitting was this voice was like, this is exactly where you're meant to be. It was like a divine knowing of like, you were called to this. Now is the time. And today we're going to show you like why and who you are and your purpose. And like, I was in tears because I was just like so in awe that like this was all about to happen.
So I can tell you what happened then physically. From a physical standpoint, you started crying before your sexual experience.
Exactly. Okay. So that was, those two things were close together.
I heard you crying. Yeah. I heard you crying for a bit. It wasn't like weeping, sobbing, but it was like, I've not heard you cry that expressively in our whole relationship.
And I don't remember. Like, I don't remember crying that expressively. Yeah. So then after that, immediately after that, there was this technology. We talked about this. I don't have another word for it except for technology.
I can explain it in detail.
That was placed on me. And it was like translucent and had like lights. And it was placed over me. I could physically feel it. From like maybe my womb, somewhere between my womb and my knee, all the way up to like through my crown chakra. So like covered all the chakras. And I could literally feel this thing, like this energy current running through me. And then this voice was like...
Now, didn't you say before you get in there, did you say something along the lines of God or something asked you like, hey, what's your like, what do you want? What's your purpose here? Like,
yes.
Do you want to,
Yes. And I was like, I want to know like, who am I? Okay. And then it told me like, you're about to get the consciousness upgrade that you've been seeking. Okay. And then it was just literally like this whole current like running through my body, and I could feel like the whole thing. Then shit started to get real weird. Apparently there was more, like apparently the sex with God thing occurred somewhere during this time frame in my mind. Like I said, things do not unfold linearly in these overlapping realities in this experience. So like I thought that was much later in the process, but then I started to see it was like a little bit freaky, like a little bit scary, like all these different like symbols. And this morning in my meditation, I unpacked that. And it was just like all the symbolism. It was like in my brain. It was like my brain starting to like decompress so that I could go deeper into the journey. But it was like I was journeying through. It was almost like an Alice in Wonderland kind of a thing. It was trippy. It was super trippy. And I think that's when I started to like get a little bit scared. But I was like, okay, who am I? Keep breathing through this. And like, I am so happy that I did do a lot of spiritual and mental work before, because, he told us it would be first the physical, then the mental, then the spiritual pieces. Like, that's kind of how it unfolds. It didn't unfold that, again, linearly for me. But I was like, in my tools, I was like, okay, like, remember who you are, your higher self, like stay connected to who you are and like lean into this and surrender to it. And, it's all necessary. That was another big phrase that was like with me through this whole experience. And it actually was downloaded to me in a meditation about 2 weeks ago. Like, it's all necessary. It's all necessary. Like, everything you're about to go through in this journey, as well as the bigger, grander journey of life, like, it's all necessary. Everything that we think is a mistake, everything that we see as a flaw in ourselves, like everything that we see as wrong, it's only because we see such a limited perception of reality. Like, we see less than 1% of reality with our physical senses. It is all divine, and it is all part of that purpose. And everything led up to this moment in time of this experience to be ready for all of this to unfold. So then after that happened, then I started to hear music. And it was, I guess you heard the song because you were still like coherent in this reality. And it was something about the ground being the crown that you seek.
So the dust on your forehead is the crown that you seek.
The dust on your forehead is the crown that you seek. So this song started playing, and then I felt this like urge to run, like I don't know if I was escaping, like I don't know if I was running to Mama Gaia or if I was running away from. I don't remember like what I was doing. Suddenly I got up, I was off my crate, I was out of the space, and I was like going down this hillside.
Yeah.
And so I went over there, and it was like I wanted to be touching the earth, but at the same time, it was like there was something like pulling me, and I don't know. Like I don't know what it was. All I know that at that point, I decided I want to be here. Like my soul wanted to be here in this reality. Like it was like I was choosing, and I wanted to be touching the earth, and but then it was like there was like overlapping realities at the same time where I wasn't really sure like what was going on and who was who and what was what. And that's when I saw the woman who was our guide as God.
Linearly here, what I saw before you got up and took off from a linear standpoint, you got up and you just started laughing. And you were acting like Akasha, and you put your hands over your face.
See, I thought that happened after.
And you're laughing, and you're doing all this, and I'm like, hey, we can't really talk,
Yeah.
But we weren't supposed to. I'm laughing. They come over, they're like, hey, you got to stop, and you just keep laughing, and you keep tapping me and stuff.
Okay, so in my mind, here's how it happens. Like, so in my mind, I see her as God, and I realize like I have the will to like be in this reality, and this is where I want to be. And I just kept saying and touching the ground, like I want to be here, I want to be here, I want to be here. And I realized like she could pull me back. She could pull me back to like where my soul wanted to be. And so she reached out, she took my hand, she pulled me back up. And like at that moment, like I just kept thinking about our family and you and Akasha and like the life that I live and like how grateful I am for everything. And that's when I came over to you and started laughing. So I was looking at you and I was just like so happy and joyful to like be your wife and be able to go in through this reality with you, and like knowing that like that's my purpose, to enjoy and be an inspiration and be a wife and be a mom and like be here. Like, and I'd have to go into what happened later to really explain like how all of that like was downloaded as like so much truth for me. But in that moment, like I thought I was me, but I was literally like seeing the world through Akasha's eyes. And I realized that Akasha and I are mirrors for each other, right? She's a mirror for my inner child. And like my inner child just wanted to be happy and be seen and be loved and love and laugh. And and then I started kind of like waving at everyone like I was a little girl, like Akasha does. She'll like wave at people and giggle.
Yeah.
And I was just, at that point, it was just so much gratitude just for this experience of life. Like I think I used to think before this that it was like, that this, this isn't reality, and like it's all about sort of like escaping this reality, like, kind of like transcending this reality. I learned that like for whatever reason, like God expressed through Kesley, wants to be here right now for a purpose.
Yeah.
So again, there's a whole lot more I can share, but that was a lot. So I think why don't we go back to you for a little bit?
Well, all right. So I'll catch up on my experience. So you're going through all that. You get up, you run. They go after you. You didn't really run. You kind of like jogged.
Yeah,
kind of trotted like a kid.
I don't think I had a whole lot of like. I'm surprised I could even walk at that point. Like I remember holding onto a post, like holding myself up.
So they go get you. You come back. So I'm just like, I'm sitting there, and before I went into this whole thing, Mother Earth told me flat out, listen, hold me, let me hold you through this embrace, right? She was like, just stay connected to me the whole time. So I kept my foot on the ground, my hand on the ground the whole time.
Grounding was so big
throughout this whole thing, right? So for me, what ended up happening was, everybody's going through all this. Everybody ended up throwing up. I didn't throw up, but I'll let you get to that because you threw up a little bit after that. You went back under the covers and were rocking for a while. So I got up and I was like, look, they laid her back down, and I'm like, I'm not really, at this point, it had started to hit me, but it felt more like a deep meditation. It didn't look anything different than the way that I saw things normally. And throughout the whole thing, it didn't really change much until the nighttime. That was different, But so everything looked more or less like the way that I see things normally. And it was revealed to me that the way that I see things is not the way that everybody normally sees things. Mm-hmm. So what I saw is the way that I see things normally is what people take ayahuasca to see.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like I can see, now that it's pointed out to me, I can literally see right now, like I don't know if these are the atoms, but whatever everything's made up of, I've always seen it. I just thought it was, I just looked through it so that I could see the stuff, but I can see what everything's made up of. Like you, this stuff right now, I'm looking at it, the camera, I can literally see all this stuff, right? So anyway, with that being said, I start to go on my journey, I guess. So first thing I do is I get up and I walk over to this area outside the shed, and it's this tree and it's nature. So this lady comes over to me and she's like, hey, how are you feeling? I'm like, Marcella. And I speak a bit of Spanish, quite a bit. And I'm like, I'm doing great. It's okay. She was like, it's not really hitting you. I was like, well, it is, but I'm okay. It's like a deep meditation. She was like, you seem like you're really coherent, but if you need anything, I'm here. She walks off, right? So instantly, like in my meditations and when I go out, I commune with and talk to trees regularly. So, but on this thing, they were louder. So I'm talking to these trees and they're telling me these different things. The younger ones are not happy with humanity, a lot of them at all, like with the things that we're doing, right? So I look over to the right and there's this old, ancient, humongous tree. It's almost the size of like a skyscraper, huge tree. And it's surrounded by all of these tree trunks, or like these cut down logs of like living former trees that they've been chopping up for firewood, right? So I didn't want to go over there because I could feel that there was death over there. And I didn't want anything to do with it, but I was like called and it said, hey, go and talk to this tree. I go over and I hug the tree. And when I hug the tree, this guy, the guide, he was an amazing guy. The guy, I don't remember his name, the bald guy.
Yeah.
You remember him? Amazing dude.
I was not as coherent as you were for so much of it, so I didn't get to interact as much.
Okay, all right.
In this reality with this,
so I'll explain the physical then. This bald guy, amazing dude. He was there and he was one of the guides and it was a family. These people were literally a family. He's one of the members of the family and he guided us. So.
Yes, and there was this young, how old was that boy? Like 10.
Yeah, the kid, he did the Aya with his father. I think he may have lived there. So anyway, so this guy tells me to hug the tree. So I hug the tree and I've never seen anything like this. It felt like I had my arms around the entire universe. I can see it now. And within the universe, there was this stream coming down, this stream of light straight to the middle of the tree. So as the stream is coming down the middle of the tree starts to talk to me. And what the tree is saying to me is it's just like, hey, it shows me this vision. And let me give you a little background of the tree. The tree, I don't know if you guys have ever seen these trees. They all have bark on them, right? It was one of those trees where all the bark had like started to fall off. You could see that all the bark was falling off, right? And the tree showed me, and it talks in your head. It doesn't talk like out loud. And it said like, hey, listen, if you were stuck in a place and if you were standing here, and I chopped up a bunch of humans and put arms and feet and legs around you, you would end up sick as well. And this is what we go through, but the human's consciousness is not there to understand that we are as alive as you are. You know what I mean? So I'm apologizing to the trees and all this. And, I'd recently seen a study before I went there on how so all the trees in the world are connected through something called a mycelial network. So their roots go out into the earth, into the dirt, but the mycelial network is like this fungus network. It's like fungus that connects all the roots of the trees. And they've scientifically shown that if one tree isn't getting enough water, then the other trees in the family will send it water. And if they're not getting nourishment, they're literally talking to each other all the time. But they've shown that when humans hug the trees, it stresses their nervous system or this mycelial network. Because humans go and they hug the trees and they're just unloading all their negativity onto the trees. Where what's meant to happen is you go to the tree from a place of unconditional love. And then from there you do that. So anyway, so I'm there. And I'm seeing this with the trees, and this goes on for, I don't know, time it started to fall away, kind of like with you. I sit down and I look at the sky, and this is when it really started, like the clouds. I could see these beings in the clouds, and they were talking to me, and they were reflecting a lot of the stuff that, they were saying was going on the earth. But I noticed that, I could speak to them, and they would reflect and talk directly back to me, right? And that's the first interaction with the cloud. So all of that happened, and I saw, all these faces, and there was a lot of negativity that was going on up there, but I was projecting love to them so they would change into loving faces back towards me. So that's my first half with the tree, so forth and so on. And but then mine gets much deeper when I go on the other side. I met the angel of fire. I didn't know that was a thing.
Wow.
And he talked to me when I sat in front of he talked to me in front of about the fire, about how fire is an element and how fire works. And he told me, he was basically like, listen, all the other elements are here. We have the elements of air. And he was like, you guys interact with that with the wind, but you make these machines that push and manipulate the air. He was like, the angel of water, that the water is here. And what happens is you guys make these machines and you punch the water through these pipes. And he was like, my whole job, I'm here to take things that are dead and I literally transmute or I burn them and I turn them into a nutrient rich source. think about like activated charcoal
Yeah.
or zeolites or ash or some of the, or volcanic ash is some of the most beneficial thing in the world. But he told me how humans, the same way that we've misused water, the same way that we've misused the air, we've misused fire. And he was talking to me about, and he showed me, I was able to literally sit there and the guy was smiling because he saw me doing it. He showed me how the fire moved because the fire was showing me how it danced. And I was able to like move the fire and I was moving the fire with it, but you have to dance with it, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a way that it moves and you have to move and dance with it. So I was literally able to move the fire and the guy was looking at me and he was like smiling and nodding and clapping because he saw what I was doing. But the angel of fire showed me that, okay, so for example, when we build our technology, like so with air, if you want to move air, it's kind of like what you see people do. You would want to breathe in with the air, hold it and feel the air and breathe out, and then ask the angel of air to work with you and then to move with you, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing with the water in your body. We're meant to bring these things in and work with them, not detach from them and try to move them around like that. But anyway, so that's my half, the first half of the journey with the fire, the earth, and all that. So let's get back into you. So
okay.
All right.
Wow, that's just beautiful though. That sounds like a really
thank you. That's only a quarter. But I think we should just talk about the big point. So we just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess I'll just talk like overarching, right? Like I had the honor of seeing my ego, like actually like being able to observe my ego.
What was that like?
It was not pleasant. It was not pleasant, but I say honor in that I think it's an honor to be able to see it so clearly, because often in this reality, our true self, which, you know, is, as I've learned through this experience, is like God expressed through this physical vessel. Our true self is often like overshadowed by our ego, or our mind takes over. And so we can't see it because the two are like so intertwined, where in these like overlapping realities that I was dancing in, it was like I could see and experience it and I could sort of like watch it and observe it. Like my mind and the thoughts that I was having were so clear. You know, like I saw the fear, I saw the judgment. Like, for example, at one point when I was like trying to touch you and talk to you and all these things, and they were like, no, you can't do that. Right. Then I started to judge myself. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm that person. I'm failing this experience. Like I'm having a bad trip. Right.
Oh my God.
But then my higher self, the voice of my higher self was so loud. It was like, Kesley, like, what are you talking about? You know, there is no good. There is no bad. There is no, like, the only judgment is the judgment you have against yourself. Let your experience be your experience. Ease into it. Like, who are you? You are Kesley. Who are you? You are love. Right? And it was like, it was so loud. And then I saw like these attachments to things like age dissolved. I was like looking around. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a little boy. He's 10. Like, I wonder if he's okay. No, age is not it's not a thing. Like, it's a perception that you have, but it's not a real thing. There was like that judgment. Right. And then there was like, you know, one thing I've thought a lot about is like abundance and money. It's like my higher self, my ego self was like, wanted to explore this. And my higher self was like, that doesn't even exist. It's just something that you all made up. Like time, right? Like my ego wanted to like attach to like time and, okay, how long is this journey going to be? Like, how long is this me seeing my ego going to last? And at one point, my mind and my ego even wanted to play a trick on me that was like, oh, you're stuck in this forever. Like, this is reality. You thought you were living in reality? No, this is reality. You're just going to be here forever, wandering around trying to figure out the purpose of life and what you're doing here and being stuck in your ego. And it was like, no, that's not real. It was just so like difficult, like the attachments and the fears and like even the fear of like knowing your purpose and wondering if you're worthy of your purpose and like having like those things come up. It was like so visible and so real. And then like, you know, trusting the process. At one point I told you, I was like, I wasn't sure if like people were like scheming on me, like everybody was in on it. And I was like, oh, okay, they all know what's going on. And I'm the only one here who doesn't know what's going on. Right. Again, that like unworthiness, that like feeling like you're less than, right? So, but it was so obvious and so clear and so loud that now when it starts to come up, the wisdom I was given for overcoming the ego in this reality is let it be like a wave that just washes over you. So like when the ego mind comes up, like, no, that's just like you're like, think of like the ocean and a rock, right? Like you're that rock, you're that stable force, like who you are, your God self is that stable force. And the ego is just something that is going to wash over you and go right back out again, go right back out. So just let those waves of the ego pass through, like using the breath again as a tool. So that was really, really powerful. So that was my experience with seeing the ego. And so really, I just want to say to anybody else who goes through that experience, like for me, what I realized today is it is an honor because it allows us in this reality to sort of like have that ego death, but really it's a rebirth because ego didn't go away necessarily, but it's like part of our experience in this reality.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you see any like aspects of your ego? No. I think everyone's experience is so different.
Yeah, everybody's is different.
Amazing.
So I'll pick up where I left off. So
okay.
The fire shows me all this stuff. So I go to the other side and I meet this lady named Angie. Everybody else is out of it. Yeah. So it's me and Angie. Now, I didn't throw up. Everybody else had thrown up, you included at this point. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about the throwing up is they said you have to give it back to the mother.
Yes.
So you throw up and you literally just roll over on the ground. Mm-hmm. Well, not roll over, but you roll over to the side of your pallet or your bed and you throw up.
Yeah.
And they come and I don't know if you noticed that, they sprinkle dirt over your over your puke. And then they said a prayer. They did like a little dance and a prayer.
I didn't see that.
And then they would come through and one of the hosts, the guy who I went through, he told me at the end of this experience that he's able to go through and he can see the negative energy in the vomit from the people, from what they've purged and what they've let out. He can see it to this day, right?
Wow.
So anyway, so I go out and I'm on the other side. So there's this big shed and we're on one side, then we go to the other side. I go to the other side. You're just out of it, or wherever you were, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is when things get real. So I'm on the other side, and this lady named Angie walks up. And she says to me what you say to me all the time. And she was like, this is the first thing she looked at me. She was like, oh, things just come really easy to you in life, huh? Do you find that? And I'm like, well, my wife says that, yes, I suppose they do. And this lady just reads me like a book. I mean, she was the channel that I've never seen before. She literally just told me everything specifically about, you name it. So she started with, hey, you're a very wise man. And you're working your purpose in this world, but you have to learn patience. You have to learn patience. And a thing that I didn't tell you that happened on the other side, or I guess I didn't say in the podcast earlier, when I was on the other side with the tree, I sat down and all these angels, and I can literally see now how everything moves. Like there's no doubt in my mind that people can walk through walls or fly. That's child's play now, right? So I was sitting there and I'm talking to all these angels and these elements. And I'm like, well, look, if that's, but imagine talking to these things, but I'm as coherent as I am right now. Right. Mm-hmm. So all these things are here, but I'm still in this state. Right. So I'm like, listen, if I can do all these things, let's do them now. Let's do them now. And then God or me gave myself a vision and it showed me a king. And there was a king and he was anywhere from 60 to 400. I couldn't tell. He was one of those types, and he ruled over this whole kingdom, which is our birthright as humans. The earth and the heavens are our birthright, right? And then he had a son who was 4. And even though the son was going to grow and the prince would grow into the king, he couldn't do the things that the servants didn't obey his every command the way that they did the king. And then they showed me that the king was God and I was the son and that I was the prince, as we all can be or all we are. And I'm screaming or throwing a tantrum like, let's do it now. But I have to grow in wisdom and in knowing to do those things. It's all of our birthright to do that, right? So anyway, so I flash forward. So I'm on the other side with Angie. And it's funny. My birth mother's name is Angela. And my rebirth, this lady named Angie, right? So she told me the things that I had to do. She was like, number one, for your path, which I've known, for your path, you have to be able to give unconditional love to everybody. So, but the first thing you have to do is love yourself. You have to be able to love yourself. And I didn't realize up until that moment, I did not love myself. I did not. And it was shown to me this. We're taught as children to, hey, I love mommy. I love you. I love daddy. I love you. I love my nanny, my aunt, my uncle, right? You're always taught to give this love out. And then you grow up and, you might love your teacher, your preacher, your whatever. And then you get your boyfriends or girlfriends respectively, right? Yeah. Well, what I was shown is this. The issue is this. The way that we're all taught to love in this world is external coming back in, right? This is the reason why when people die and they cross over, they're like, there's no love that I felt in this world, not even for my children. My children is the second closest love. This isn't me. I didn't cross over, but through death at least. But a lot of the people that cross over say that when I go there, the love is nothing here compares. It's because of the way that we were taught to love. So I was shown that the reason why, so my first love was a woman named Crystal, well, a girl, we were teenagers then. And I loved her so heavily. And when we broke up, it hurt. It hurt a lot. And I was shown that the reason that it hurts is this. we project and we give the love to others, and we make them hold that love that's meant to come from us first, right? It's meant to come from within, but we put it on somebody without. And then if that person leaves, it's the deepest pain that you can feel, right? So it was shown to me that the way that love is meant to work is this. It's the heart chakra and the solar plexus, or this. It was shown to me like a heart and a sun. And basically, when the sun is everlasting and it's always giving energy, right? And when you love yourself truly, the sun shines into your heart, or your solar plexus into your heart, and this love radiates out. And that way you're able to give love infinitely to everybody. You can have as open as a heart. You can't be used in that scenario because you're always replenished. You can never be drained, right? And I felt that in that moment.
Wow.
And what the key was, Angie told me I had to go and forgive myself, right? And I realized that there were things that I had done since I was a kid that I told myself, like, hey, this is I didn't really have darkness. Nobody really has darkness. No. But me personally, I didn't really have darkness, but I told myself, or I adopted these things so I could be like other people. And I saw other people have this, so let me buy into these things, and I put these dark things onto myself, right? So like beliefs on, like, cheating on women, or back in the day, or lying. Mainly, it was the only thing that I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, but I mean, we are all perfect. But literally, morally, the only thing that I had done that I felt bad about, or the harm that I had done to people, was lying to women throughout my life, as a young man. So anyway, so I was shown all of that, and then Angie was telling me, you have to forgive yourself, you have to stop looking at the past, and you have to be present. You need to learn presence, and you're very wise. And then she told me some things about Kes, but if I go down that's going to be too far, and we'll be here forever. But anyway, so I go and I lay down, and these things would come up, these things that I was holding that I would feel shame over or guilt over. And I saw them and I forgave myself. And it was like this voice said, it was the Mother Earth was like, now that I have forgiven myself, I can love myself fully. And I just felt my heart energized and energized and energized. And that went on for some time. But then right after that, so when you talked about that technological thing, so that went on, and through that love, right, I was able to see. Now, if most people saw this, they would think this is God. But I knew that it wasn't, but it was close. So the way that it was revealed to me is that there's this huge creative force, this huge creator. But this creative force created administrators of reality directly underneath it, right? But if you saw these things from a human standpoint, you would think it was God. But through my wisdom, the wisdom that was given to me, I could tell that it is God.
They fit the archetype of what we think of as God.
Exactly, right? So this thing, the only way to describe it, imagine the most advanced technology that you can imagine in this world. Like, it was beyond. So the most advanced thing you can imagine, imagine that times 10, powered by spirit, right? So it was spiritual technology that was alive. And it was the biggest thing I've ever seen. It's the clouds. I can see it now. And so when Tess described the thing that came to her, it was a piece of that.
I was like, it was a machine, and you're like technology. I'm like, you won't understand what this is. I don't have the words for it. And I was like, machine, and you're like, technology. And I'm like, yes, that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
But I saw that come from that city or that place, right? And it's kind of like a kingdom of heaven, if you will. So I saw that, and that was there. But it was revealed to me, and they told me, and it was like, listen, your role in this world. I saw what I did out of body, and I know who I am, the King of Peace. And that's what I'm here to be and to do, is to bring about and facilitate peace in this world. You know what I mean? And in knowing that, there's no doubt. It doesn't matter what anybody says. I know that now. You know what I mean? And in knowing that and seeing my role, it's like working on and bringing the kingdom of heaven here. You know what I mean? And creating it here.
The kingdom of heaven is here. That's what I learned, right? That's why I wanted to be here so badly.
I'm happy you said that. Is here. The kingdom of heaven is here, but helping everybody to realize that it's here. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you could be, it's like that whole thing when we think about it. It's the same thing as when we did our first drive. We gave those kids those erasers, right? An eraser is an eraser, right? But that kid that we gave that eraser to, it was like giving them a PlayStation 5. Yes. But you give that same eraser to somebody in the US and they're like, what is this, bro? It's just an eraser, right? Well, it's seeing that it's here and realizing that it's here and that it's in all of us. You know what I mean?
Wow. And did that become so real? Right? Did that become so real? Is there anything else you'd like to share? Otherwise, I can build off of that.
You go ahead and build on it.
Okay. So this like knowing of the kingdom of heaven is here. So at some point in this experience, I saw what I believed to be God, right? So it was just this darkness, right? Just vast darkness. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm sure everyone may experience God differently, but for me, it was like that broke every stereotype of what we think God is here, right? God is this, bearded guy sitting in a throne, whatever, like all these ideas of God and what he looks like and he or she or whatever. It was just everything, because it was black, like everything rolled into one. And there was like, it was almost like an NDE where it was like this choice that I was asked to make on, do you want to go over into this vastness of being on the other side, or do you want to be here? And it was like, in my heart of hearts, my soul, I wanted to be here. But at the same time, I knew as I looked in and saw that darkness, that vastness of all, everything that is, I knew that that's where I came from. I know that's what I'm made of. I know that's God, and I know that God's in me. Just like God wants to have this experience through me here. Like that's so real to me. And like the fact that like I was able to see that and know that that's like where I come from, but yet this is my home. And I choose this home because the kingdom of heaven is here. Like the ability to experience all that we do, the emotions of joy and love and all of these things. And what I learned about love is like that vastness is love. We are love, right? And it's an honor to love. And when I am in my like remembering that I am God, I experience the inner child. I talked about that. The inner child in me wants to be loved, but the God in me wants to love. Just wants to love. Like that's all the God in me wants to do is just love. And the other part that was really cool was like, I said seeing God in myself, but then seeing God in like so many other people and the animals. There were 2 dogs that were walking around. One of them, you said that dog could be a wolf. Like
there's a wolf. They got a wolf walking around there. He's very peaceful, but that's a wolf.
He became
He's very peaceful though.
He became God for me as well. Like that dog, I was just sitting there and we were talking about him, and all of a sudden I feel him come and he walks up and start petting him, and I looked in his eyes and I was like, you are God too. And like he wanted to give love, but he also wanted to receive love. Before we left, he rolled over and he just wanted me to pet his belly. He wanted to receive love too, right? Like we all have that dualistic nature in us, and it's okay to know that we are God and we are here to give love, but we're also in this experience where we get the honor of also receiving love.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
It is very beautiful. Your eyes have been different since you came back from this,
Yeah.
Very much.
It changes something in you, right? And that's my prayer, is that you get to see this. And now it's like the process of not just like knowing it, but then embodying it and becoming it. And like, I know that it's in there, but like you were talking earlier about like some of the doubts. It's like, well, can I walk in this? Can I embody? How do I embody this? And I know that it will all happen.
The key issue is this: the issue is we're taught that we're only human.
Yeah.
We're this, that, and the third. Like, but when you see that, listen, the Bible, the Torah, anything you read talks about you're created in the image of whatever it is that created us, and we're like that, and it's our birthright to be that, right?
Yeah.
But then the preachers and the teachers and all these folks, they diminish that drastically. So our whole world is here, and it's taught us. And there's the earth, and then there's the world. The world is this fictitious thing with all these buildings and jobs and money. It's fake. It's not real, right? Mm-hmm. But in the world, we're taught these fake things. So if you're taught from a young age, man, I'm just human, I'm da-da-da, and then you go and you see this stuff, and you're like, oh my God, I'm God, I'm a co-creator, I'm part of this, right?
Yeah.
You're going to doubt that and I guess that would be the ego, if you will.
That is the ego, yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like, I don't even want to blame the ego, because it's more of a thing. Like when I think of ego, I think of something that occurs naturally in men and women, right? But this is something that's been nurtured and grown and taught. And, if you took away all the teaching and the miseducation and the lies, and that stuff wouldn't be there. If somebody's teaching you, imagine Akasha in the way that we're raising her, and then in 10 years, 20 years, she goes and she's like, oh, I already knew half of this stuff.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. There would be no doubting it, But when you're taught, oh, I'm just this and I'm just that and da-da-da-da, and then a lot of us dim our lights. I didn't even realize that, myself included. We dim our lights just to be around other people, because people feel uncomfortable in the greatness. But it's not that they feel uncomfortable in the greatness, because we're all great. Yeah. We're all God. What it is you resonate that peace, right? You're a mirror for them, right? you resonate that piece of God within them, and they're uncomfortable because they don't know that. They don't want to accept that, right? And that's where they feel uncomfortable. And that's literally all that it is. But, you know, I saw everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if there's any more I want to share on this podcast about that specifically, about the experience. I mean, that thing up there. I saw, well, okay, this is the last thing I'll share. All right. So the clouds, Kes can tell you since we've been together, I've been saying, babe, there's something ain't right with the clouds. Something's not right. These chemtrails, what are making clouds, but the living real clouds, I've been saying it for the longest, and I saw it flat out. So the sun and the clouds were talking to me, and flat out, the sun yelled at me like, look, and you will know what you are. We all have different roles in this infinite thing. But from a human standpoint, judging up, it looks like, because we're taught to judge each other in hierarchy, it's all just our roles, right? But I have a role when I'm not in body, or maybe I am, I don't know, but it's very actively involved in creation. And they showed me these faces, and I literally saw my face in the sky. They had to show me as my face and then back so that I would see it was me. But they showed me my face in the sky, and then I created something, and I blew life into it. And then I just saw it go out all over the universe and just was created. You know what I mean? And then I'll look down at myself and smile. You know what I mean? So I was able to see that and to know like what my piece of what we all are, our role is. Then, now I had this vision before, but I'm ready to share it now. So I was shown this, but it was confirmed during the ayahuasca. I was shown how life works. So imagine a infinite ocean over an infinite plane that goes out infinitely, right? And that's the easiest way to describe what we all are. That infinite ocean everywhere would be what we would consider God. Now there's a big conscious piece of it that is like a tree. So imagine this humongous tree, bigger than anything you can imagine, right? And this is very similar to what Yandia talked about. But there's this huge tree, what we see in the middle of it, and that's the living thing that's administered. It's all alive, right? Now what was shown to me is the tree drops these seeds, right? And they look kind of like watermelon seeds. The seeds go down into the ocean. They go through the ocean because they're physical. And then once they go through the ocean, they fall on the earth, and that's how you're born, right? Now, the tree would like it for some, if not all of the seeds to be like the tree, to turn into a tree. But often or too often times, due to things like working your entire life, believing in religion, believing in things that you're taught, what happens is you're born and the seed has a little bit of that water, that ocean in it. So the seed would be your physical body, and the ocean would be your, or the water inside would be the ocean. And what happens is we're meant to, or the tree would like us, or God would like us to grow, or at least sprout and turn into the tree again. But most of us live a life where we're just the seed. We never realize our potential. We never grow, and we literally die. The seed just dies and goes back to the earth, and she recycles it. But the water goes back into that ocean. And that's where reincarnation comes into play, because the ocean feeds the tree again, and it creates another drop seed, and it happens all over again. And that's where you get your past lives and all that. But I could see that completely clearly. But the tree would like it if we would go and grow. And there's a way to do that. And you grow and you become the tree. You know, that's what the spirit, at least what was revealed to me, or what was shown to me, is that's why the spirit and the body are, they don't come together so that you live in it and you die and you leave it. They come together so that you grow and you make something new. And, you know, when they say that in the Bible, Yeshua talked about how from the earth we come and then from the earth we must return. Well, that's a two-edged thing. I can explain it. You can either give your body back to the earth completely, like the seed just dies and then you're in the water and then you reincarnate and you become as another person, or just as a seedling sprouts out, the physical body turns into something else. The shell would go back, but there's a new body, that light body that people talk about, or a heavenly body that people talk about. You can achieve that here. I saw it. And you literally turn into that, and then that's how you start to grow as a tree. That's how you start to grow. That's the truth.
Wow. That is
true. Let me say it like that. That is true.
That is true.
Yeah, I think that's all I want to share about. Anything else you want to talk about that?
Wow. I would say, just to kind of cap it off with one last thing that became very real to me, you talked about, like, you know, being the creator. The fact that we have this gift of the will, right? Like, there were so many moments, like I said, I had the choice point of, do you want to cross over or do you want to stay here in this reality? And like, it was told to me that, yes, if you stay here, like, you are the creator of your reality. That's not cap. That's not just something that people say, woo woo stuff. Like, we are literally creating our reality. Yeah. We are creators of our reality, and we are living in the kingdom. Yeah. And so we have that gift, this experience of being human. I know that there's a lot going on in this world. And sometimes we look out and we're like, what am I doing? Like, why did my soul choose this?
Yeah.
It was so beautifully shown to me, like, that I want to be here and my soul wants to be here, and that this kingdom that we're experiencing in a human body as God is such an amazing gift. So like gratitude was a huge, huge theme that I came out of this with. I'll end with that. That's all I have left.
Yeah, gratitude. I can agree with that. Gratitude and presence. I could see that
Yeah.
I've lost that second thing that I did with August doing that divine healing with August Alchemy is she really integrated it a lot, that I'm very yang energy and I'm very like focused on the end goal and focused on the getting things accomplished, but I've missed the journey in a lot. So I'm sitting here, I'm enjoying this podcast recording right now.
Too.
I'm enjoying Meditaji, and I have to refocus on that. So the leaving message I would leave everybody with: love is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
But before you can love anybody else, you have to love yourself. Now, I know that sounds cliche, but the main reason that think about it like this, all right? You got a guy that say you're married and I don't know, he slept with your wife, or he stole a bunch of money from you, or he backstabbed you, right? Now, you could say that you love this guy, but as long as you hold these things in front of this person, that love is going to be blocked. That's why they talk about forgiveness. And we'll forgive other people all day, right? I need each and every one of you guys, the biggest advice I can give you is we need to look at ourselves and we have to forgive ourselves first.
Yes.
And we have to love ourselves first. And then once we forgive ourselves for whatever it is that you judge yourself, it doesn't matter what you've done. Forgive yourself and love yourself. And from there, we can all be brothers and sisters and sharing this kingdom.
That's beautiful. I think we should end there.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, that is pretty beautiful. I like that. All right. Well, tune in next week. I think next week we're going to start we need to talk about Meditaji a little bit.
Okay, cool.
So we'll start off by talking about Meditaji. And I think that what I want to get into next week is what we'll do is we can talk about the distinction between Meditaji and Cartagena, and then also what our relationship is like, because we will have integrated a lot more stuff.
Yes.
So we can talk about our relationship before ayahuasca and then after ayahuasca.
Perfect. I love it.
All right. So it's been the Ascended Life Podcast yet again.
Peace and love to all of you. Thanks for being here with us.
Peace and love. Thanks for checking us out.